to, I forgot whether we mentioned or not, but we will have a question and answer session after the talk, after the break. So if you do have things on your mind that have not been answered in the talk, by all means bring them up at that time. And I would like, quite frankly, to make it a very lively question and answer session, an open discussion. This is how we learn. See, perhaps, maybe for many, many years, you've had questions on your mind, and maybe you haven't not only formulated them in your mind clearly, but you didn't know who to ask. This is the place to bring them out, and we're going to discuss all these things that perhaps we have not had the opportunity to discuss before. And maybe even some of you, I don't know, have not heard the sound of your own voice in public. This would be a good opportunity to do that too. In the years in discussing these things and in writing books, probably the single greatest error that people make in studying these things is the idea that they are not practical for daily living. And this is a tremendous mistake. You know, you think with me now. Think of what you consider to be practical in your life. And then ask yourself whether what you have called practical, see, this is very, very deep self-exploration here today. You have to do a lot of the work yourself. You ask yourself whether what you have considered practical up to this point in your life has given you what you really want deep down inside. And I think you do sense what you want inside. And shall I number a few of them? Because we all want the same thing. We want to be able to get up in the morning without being afraid of all these things that in the past have maybe bothered us, going down to work and being under tension at work. Perhaps wondering about our health. This is a personal thing which you can think about as we talk along here. And I will tell you that you do not have, and this is not, I'm not speaking idealistically, and I'm not giving a sermon. I'm not telling you pretty things. But I will tell you that you do not have a problem or a conflict or a question which cannot be not only solved, but completely solved and forever solved. Now, if this sounds too good to be true, you just listen very carefully tonight to the things we're going to go into. And then you change your mind about this. Because when certain basic facts about who you are understood, the whole haunted house collapses. And if you tear down the haunted house, there's no room for any ghosts at all, is there? See? And it will do you no good, or me any good, to chase them out one at a time, because you'd never get to the end of it. You clear out one room and it goes into another room. You know what I'm getting at. You solve one problem and you run right into another. Or what you think have solved a problem has created two more. Perhaps I'm lonely. I'll get married or I'll get new friends, and I find out that it actually does nothing for my loneliness except to cover it up for a short period of time. And then to my great horror, I find out that I'm in a greater mess than I was before. See, some of you are smiling. So tonight, what we're going to do is really study one single situation. And by understanding that, the entire structure collapses, not overnight, but you can go as fast as you want to go. What does the haunted house consist of? It started to be built when you were born, when I was born, and when society as a whole, and unfortunately but true, our own parents, and newspaper headlines, and these thousands of influences started to tell us who we are. By the time you were 6 months old, you already had about 50 labels. And when you put a label of peaches on a can, you expect to find peaches in there. So when we put a label on ourselves, the label that I must be popular with the crowd. This is the label that society gives you, who ought to be popular. Now you're in trouble. Because we start trading ourselves with other people in an effort to gain an affirmation of a mere label. And there is no way on earth you can confirm an illusion. Now, please, if this sounds negative, it is not negative. This is true positive thinking, because we're exploring where the problem is. If you understand the problem, that is the solution also. If I see I have a headache, and if I take an aspirin for headache, but if I see I have a headache and I know what to do about it, I get out of the sun or take an aspirin or whatever I do. But if I deceive myself about my headache, I never know what to do. I may do a lot of foolish things. When I begin to see that what I have called myself is not myself at all, but something which is driving me, which is compelling me, already I'm getting smart. Already I'm beginning to detach this terrible label. There are thousands of them. You have to look into yourself and find your own. And I will give you a little reversal technique here. Instead of believing something, stop believing something. Stop believing that you have to chase a single thing in life. That is a fact. You know what happens whenever you start to do something as drastic as this? It gives you a great shock. And this is a very healthy shock. Because if I'm running down the street 20 miles an hour, if I run that fast, which I doubt, and I suddenly decide I want to go in the opposite direction, I'm going to screech to a halt and jolt myself. But I have stopped running in that direction and made a reversal. If, as your minister mentioned, you can start the process of self-observation daily, right now as you're sitting here. I'll give you a few examples to be conscious of, to observe yourself. Be aware of your physical position. Be aware of whether your jaw might be a little bit clenched, and if so, drop it a little bit. Relax your hands. Be aware of the expression on your face. This is just the very beginning. There's a long ways to go. I wonder if you, up to this point in the evening, have become aware of your reactions to what you have been hearing tonight. Because this is of tremendous importance. Because the things you have learned up till now, if they have been responding mechanically to what you have been hearing, then you haven't been hearing at all. Because these mechanical thoughts are standing in the way of it. So an intelligent mind is not a mind that is a blank mind, but it is a mind that is very alert and very receptive and resists nothing, but also does not accept anything. Because if you're simply going to accept something because it confirms what you already believe, then this is nothing new. And we're here tonight. If we could get just one ounce of newness, we have scored a great success. So if you've observed yourself up to this point, you've maybe seen a label or two, an image or two. See, you do not control images or mechanical thoughts, nor do I, but rather they control us. But we're so unaware of why we say a certain thing to a person because we never question whether it's necessary to say this or behave that way. All right. As a broad example, you ask yourself whether this has happened to you today. As a broad example, you ask yourself whether you have been negative in any way at all since this morning. You know what it means to be negative, don't you? You ask yourself if you have been negative. Now, let's say, for example, at 10 o'clock, some little thing that happened, what? The paper boy got the paper wet, so you couldn't read the sports page. You name it. Did you at that time question whether it was necessary to become distressed or upset over the occurrence? You think this is a small thing. If I can see one little mechanical response in me that punishes me, if I see clearly that when I am negative, when I am upset, when I'm distressed, when I'm resentful, when I'm angry, if I see that it punishes me, I stop. Because no human being on earth has ever consciously punished himself. Never. I'll give you one of my favorite phrases, and maybe it'll become one of your favorite ones too. I want you to start thinking and connecting properly the idea of self-defeating behavior. Self-defeating behavior is anything that is, one, mechanical. It is anything that goes against your true interests. It is anything that spreads itself, that radiates itself, that harms another person. When I have seen all this, even once, and begin to work real hard on myself, I begin to come into another area. See, we have to go real fast on these things. We're hitting highlights, but during the questions, we'll cover some of them. When I see that I am divided against myself by being negative, I now see what the problem is. Having seen the problem, and having read some good books, and discussed these things with other people who are interested in them, sooner or later, I will come across something of great importance. That isn't a strong enough word. Incredible importance. And when you see this, instead of walking toward self-change, toward self-newness, you will fly. And I will give it to you as a word, and then we'll connect it a little bit to what we've talked about so far. When I begin to see what it means to be self-unified, when I am one person with myself, and I'm not divided into this choice and that choice, which used to drive me mad before I got into these things and found out that I don't have to be driven by choices. See, when you have choice, when you choose, I'm not talking about choice between a blue tie and a red tie, or a Buick and a Cadillac. Cadillac's more expensive. I'm talking about psychological choice, where we think that choosing this person to be in our life, or choosing this way of living, will make us happy, because it won't. When I begin to see that I am divided and thinking that something outside of myself can save me, I begin to, this isn't quite the right word, but I begin to dislike being split apart. Then by connecting all this knowledge that I've gained, I begin to see that I can be a single, whole, capital W-H-O-L-E, individual. When When I am one, a whole person, I have no enemies whatsoever in this world. There's no human being who can frustrate me in the slightest. You can fire me from my job after 20 or 30 years, and I am not distressed. Do you believe this, by the way? You experience it. You'll write me a letter and say that's right. Let's continue. I am in conflict with nothing outside of me because I'm not in conflict with anything within me, because the two will match. If you want to know, not necessarily you, but self-work is better than other. If you want to know how divided a friend of yours is or a relative, observe how many conflicts he has in the outer world. And you will know, because the two will be exactly equal. If you want to know how whole, how totally healed a human being is, just observe how he behaves out in public, not in the hole. That's easy to hide. You observe how people behave in public in little things, not in big things, in little things. And when you see a person who has no enemies outwardly, he will have none inwardly. Again, the two will match. When I get tired enough of being in outer conflict and go to work on myself and end the inner conflict, I begin to end the outer. Because I find a very strange thing. I find that I never did have an opposition or an enemy out there at all. It is because I wanted this promotion, I wanted this friend, this husband, this wife, because I thought that this person, this promotion, this fame and popularity would fulfill this emptiness that I feel in here. But for heaven's sake, for 10, 20, 30 years, I have been more or less succeeding in getting the raise through the labor contract or whatever. I have been getting this pretty wife or handsome husband, and I got the better home with 3 bedrooms instead of 2, which excites me for a moment. Not much longer than that, though. Now I want 4 bedrooms. I get to the point where I say, for heaven's sakes, what is wrong? Everything I've done for all these years has done absolutely nothing for my level of true contentment, of happiness. This ounce of insight is the most beautiful, powerful, exciting thing that could ever happen to a human being. But he has to get to this point. See, if you've got it made in the exterior world, if I have it made, we have no motive for finding ourselves. Why should we? We've got it made. No problem. At the same time, we'll be frightened because we do not even realize that we haven't found ourselves. This is why every time I have a crisis, I have a suffering, I have a severe problem, I don't care what it is. Don't make exceptions. If you make exceptions, you lose something valuable. Down at the office, what do you have? An irritable boss? Something at home? Every time I have one of these problems, I have an opportunity to find, and I'll get religious for a minute, the kingdom of heaven within. But I have to get to the point where I want it more than I want weeds which masquerade as flowers. The next time you have a conflict, a problem, a suffering, instead of covering it up, you look at it and say, this is a tremendous thing. It is. It's a tremendous thing that is happening to you because it is trying to tell me that something is wrong. Now, if my automobile breaks down, I don't pretend that it's running right. If I know how to fix a car, I fix it myself. If I don't, I take it to a mechanic. But the last thing I do is deceive myself and say that the car is running well, because I know it isn't. I'd be very foolish to deceive myself. Unfortunately, human beings do not do this when it comes to a psychological breakdown, an emotional breakdown. But we cover it over with smiles or with activities or with alcohol or whatever each individual turns to, or with daydreams, which wastes an awful lot of energy that could go into self-observation, by the way. When I am no longer afraid of seeing the state that I am actually in when I am all alone, and I look at it and I put together all the ingredients which we had barely covered so far, self-observation, self-honesty, a wish for something entirely different, the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle start to fall into place. Now I'll take, when this begins to happen, if you reach this point, when you reach this point, you will feel something entirely different than you have ever felt before. And it will be so vague, you won't even know what it is. I'm not being mystical, please. These are facts. You do this, and you'll come up and you'll smile at me, and we'll both know we're talking about the same thing. It will be something very strange at the start because it is something entirely new for the first time. This means that we have willingly dropped our old concepts, our old viewpoints, and left just that much room for something new. And when you leave it empty, it will be filled, and it will astonish you. This is the beginning of what all the great avatars, Christ included, this is what they were talking about when they spoke about the new birth. You must be born again. And remember, he said, unless a grain of corn fall into the ground and die, it can't grow and bear fruit. Do you see how this connects with what we've been talking about? I see the state I am in. And I'm not ashamed of it because this is a wrong move to be ashamed. When I am ashamed of the fact that I have evil thoughts, I have already made a great blunder because this is very difficult and you have to follow. When I am ashamed of anything I do or say, I have merely created another mechanical movement, and I will repeat the very same thing or something similar to it, and this is my circle all day long. If I can see how foolish I have been either 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago, see it as a fact, and not fall into guilt and shame over it, but simply understand that this was a mechanical working of not me, which I had formerly taken as me, I can begin to die daily to it. But people, do you know that people like their shames and their guilts? They won't give them up. They like their sufferings. They like their pains. Because when I am in pain, and I go to your house, psychological pain, mental pain, emotional pain, and I go to your house, I can talk for a half hour or two to you about it and be the center of attention. And if I prefer this to dying to my pain, then I'll never find the answer. If I get to the tired point where I don't want to suffer anymore, I will soon find out that I don't have to suffer from anything whatsoever, anything, from my own egotism, from my own attempts to be somebody. I'm going to end this real quick. I want to leave a lot of time for a discussion. When I am willing to be absolutely nobody at all, socially, which does not mean I don't have friends, does not mean I don't meet with people to study these things. In fact, I increase it, I triple it. I get real eager, I get really excited. I've seen something for the first time in my life. Here I am, 30, 40, 50, and it's about time I began to wake up. I'm excited. But when I'm willing to be absolutely nobody at all, and not be necessarily the teacher or the writer, I'm beginning to get really intelligent. Now, you and I can come together in a group like this and exchange these things and help each other to grow. You're not going to, I tell you, and you know it, you're not going to find help in these things from out there because most people are not interested in them. You know that. You brought it up. I imagine most of you have brought it up to other people and found out. When I have died to myself, which is a very complex subject which we can't go into, but maybe you might like to ask a question. Then I am completely empty, am I not? Then the truth, which is very eager, by the way, to rush in to fill this emptiness, will do so. And this is not, again, it's not even metaphysical, it's not esoteric, it is a fact. If you want to put the label on it, esoteric, fine, and we do need words. You experiment for yourself in these things. And then you, see, I can't prove this to you. I know it's true. May I say that? I know it is. And you will know it from yourself. You can't know it from me, and you can't know it from your wife or from your husband. When you know it from yourself, when you know this from yourself, if no one else in the world knew it, and you're the only one who knew the truth, you would know it. No one could ever. How could they sway you from it? If I know the sun rises in the east, I know it. And you tell me it rises in the south, I don't believe you. I know. Do you want to take the break now?
Well, Glover, and really, you said the truth is obvious or easily seen. Or my point is, most people would recognize truth. They get in between the eye, and I could prove it. It's you know, for centuries, people believed the Earth was flat, and it was round, whether they liked it or not. I mean, there's so many things you could point at that people just couldn't recognize the truth. And I really doubt most people could.
Oh no! You would never ever hear me say that the truth is the easiest thing in the world to find. It is enormously difficult. This is why we're throwing everything we can into the work. The truth is the last thing any human being wants.
Well,
May I make that correction?
Well, how do you know you've got it?
Pardon?
How do you know you've got it?
If you will watch yourself very carefully, even now as you're sitting here, you will know whether you're sitting in self-unity or not, or whether there is agitation in you or not. You can look at yourself. Remember a little bit earlier I asked you to be aware of yourself? Maybe your hands are tense. You'll know. But I can't tell you. Yes, ma'am?
Your statement of the truth was enormously difficult to find. I don't go along with that.
Okay.
Because some of the people in this group here and I have been working on meditation, and we find that the truth is not difficult to find.
Shall we go into a short discussion on it? Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. All right. This is a fact. Now, every one of you have just heard a fact. You have in your mind at this very second the fact that ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Fine. Easy. No problem. Now let me ask each one of you a question. You answer it to yourself. Has the truth set you free?
Yes, it does.
Then you should be up here. Daily self-work on ourselves will show us where every day we have a new barrier, a new hurdle that we didn't know we had before. I don't know about you, but I never stop working. I'm working just as I'm talking to you now. I'm watching my reactions, for example, to your questions. I'm watching your attitudes. See, I'm working on myself. I have never come to the end of it, and I don't think anyone else can. Maybe if you're on the level of Christ, perhaps.
Then it deserves fleeting thing. It comes in little pieces, and then it deserts us, or in some other segment or area of consciousness we are not aware of the truth, whereas in some other place we might be.
Well, the truth itself is always constant, but our vision of it
Apprehension
is not always so. I'll tell you, if you think of the truth simply as something which does not cause any inner disturbance in you, you will never go wrong. Do you understand? Let me get very emotional for a minute. Do you understand what tremendous self-honesty this takes? Never say that you've found the final answer. If you do, you are sunk. This takes tremendous self-honesty. Don't you dare deceive yourself. You keep yourself wide open to the possibility that maybe you are living from an image of being free instead of being free, and you don't see the contradiction. This is not harsh. I'm not being harsh. See, the truth is the kindest thing on earth. But it says you must not deceive yourself, or you'll continue to suffer just as you have suffered all your life. And the doctor says I have appendicitis. He is being kind to me. He's not being brutal to me. See? Yes?
What is this truth that you speak about? Does it come in one part, two parts, or how many parts, or what is it? For many years I've heard it, and I've never had a good description of it yet. What is this truth you speak of?
I live in truth, and you live in truth when you're not in opposition to anything that happens to you, which does not mean, as people will say, to let the world walk over you. When I see an enemy, what I call an enemy out there, it is because I think that I must gain something from the exterior world, and it has nothing to give me at all. If you say you believe in the New Testament, then you have to accept all these things that we're discussing tonight, because it says it far better than we could say it. The truth is within. The truth is the kingdom of heaven within. And as long as we are in conflict, then we cannot recognize it. When I know what a falsehood is, and I am willing to give up that falsehood, then I will know what the truth is. All right. If I know that I am in conflict, that is a form of the truth, a fact in itself. And it is a very healing fact. But if I am living in unconscious images of being happy, which the vast majority of human beings are doing, I have deceived myself, and I will pay the price. I said before, and I will repeat, please, whatever you do, get tired of paying the price of self-deception. And don't let other people deceive you, and they won't when you know. Then the people that you're talking with about these things will be your true friends. Yes, sir. And then the lady.
I'm awfully new at this,
Yes.
like this, thinking about all this stuff. But maybe the answer to some of these questions are that I found when I find a truth, I know it. But it's before you can really take time to get a lot of satisfaction out of it, 10 more ideas pop into your head that right off the bat you're off seeking another answer to that again. It's not just one simple truth that answers all the questions. But each one opens up 10 more avenues that you have to start seeking again.
The gentleman stated, if I have this correctly, that the longer you work, the more questions you have. All right. And this is a wonderful thing. The person who never questions is dead, spiritually and psychologically. This is why we're here, not to sit here and be saints, but to find out that we're not saints. You understand? But to start to ask questions of ourselves and find out Look, don't conquer the world. You conquer one little corner of it to start with, and you will conquer the world, because the world isn't outside of you, by the way. It is and it isn't. You take some little disappointment, and you work on this according to the principles we've been discussing. You say to yourself, take a little disappointment. First, be aware of it. You have to see it. You can't change anything you don't see. If you see it, I was disappointed. See it deeply. See it fully. And then say, I don't like feeling disappointed because I recognize this as a negative feeling, a self-punishing feeling. Now, the man at the top in the books I've been reading, and the minister of the church, says I don't have to be disappointed in anything. Now, I've never experienced this, but I'm going to try it just on this little thing. I expected a letter from Aunt Margaret in Iowa because it had some important news for me. It didn't come. I'm disappointed. I expected this letter to fulfill me in some way. Well, they also said that it could not fulfill me, but because I'm not fulfilled in myself, I'm always looking for something outside to do it. This is my whole pattern of life. I'm going to simply drop my disappointment just to see what happens. You drop that disappointment just like that, just to see what happens. And you watch you watch the devil start fighting you when you do this, the devil being automatic negative reactions. Because they've had you so long, they're not going to let you go, or be. An illustration, then we'll go on to the lady here. A man asleep in a canoe, drifting down a river. He's lying down his canoe, sound asleep. The canoe is drifting toward a waterfall. This man has no problems at all. Nothing's going to disturb him. He's asleep. He's heading toward the waterfall, but he doesn't know it. He doesn't know, as example, make it practical, that tomorrow he's going to be knocked out of his beautiful dream life that he's living in by something that's going to happen to him. But he has no problem because he doesn't know that he's asleep. If you are drifting asleep in this canoe and I'm standing on the bank and I see you there, and I don't want you to be destroyed, I'm a good citizen and I don't want to see you go over the waterfall, and I throw a rock, several rocks at the canoe to try to wake you up, I'm your friend, see? But if you look up and you don't see that waterfall, you're going to think that I'm very evil and throwing rocks at you. And right, you want to know the most hostile people in the world are those who are told the truth they don't want. But if you will just listen just for a minute, and I say, sir, look ahead of you down there. The minute he sees that, he starts thanking me. And a very quick thing, because now he has to work like crazy. Here's the point. When you get into this, your work has just begun. You're going against attitudes and beliefs and illusions of 30, 40 years. But this is beautiful. This is really exciting. This is wonderful. You're not asleep anymore. The lady.
This is in regard to how this connects to decisions. To simplify it, suppose you have a decision to make between a Cadillac and a Buick, and if you practice non-emotional involvement in it, how does, I don't understand how you make the decision anymore then.
All right, very good. The lady asks, if I may interpret it, how do you make decisions on the everyday level without getting emotionally involved in it? You know, when you have this thing that we're talking about, call it what you want, use any name you want. When you have this, you get so practical in everyday things. You want to save money? You just get onto this, and you won't waste money as most people do foolishly. Look, it's a simple thing. Through wanting a Cadillac instead of a Volkswagen because you think it'll impress the neighbor. He's not impressed. You don't spend money, you don't spend your energy, you don't spend your life trying to do the impossible, which is trying to, again, prove yourself. Because there's nothing to prove. You raise, this is getting awful practical, you raise your income 50% because you stop wasting your money on stupid things. That's right. You stop and, just briefly, you stop and look at the insanity of this world. What is the budget for military spending? $100 billion a year? Enough said. When you are one, you are a clear thinker. And a lot of people who are in your life will go out of your life too, because you're not going to sit over that coffee table every morning at 9 o'clock and let Mary Lou drain you with her neurotic chatter. And you don't drain her anymore because you're beginning to be sane yourself. And you stay home and you read a good book, yes. Or if you don't read a book, you know what you do? You work consciously around the house. While you're pushing the vacuum cleaner, do you push vacuum? You don't push vacuum cleaner. You'll haul them around. You're dusting the floor or whatever you're doing. You're watching yourself. You're working on yourself. You're studying yourself. There isn't another person within 10 miles that is doing this. They're pushing the vacuum cleaner resentfully because they want to be out swimming. You don't give 2 cents what you're doing because you have found something that is going to positively revolutionize your life. You're not going to Mary Lou's house anymore. You're going to save your energy. Sir, yes?
I got a sort of a sneaker question. Has there ever been a dynamic society that didn't have a high military budget? I don't know. Do you know that?
Well, I don't really see the connection with that,
Well,
what
you
we're
say,
talking
like,
about.
people think military work. It's interesting, though, because it looks like it's wasteful on the surface. But, I never seen any group of people that didn't have this wasteful effort.
Well, of course you haven't, because mankind is mad. May I add one point, then we'll come to you. Remember you said this is intensely practical? You look at your headlines tonight, you look at the news tomorrow, and you see what kind of a world you're living in. When you have found yourself, and I wish there were more praise, but we have to stick to certain ones. When you have found yourself, you are no longer contributing to that madness, to that insanity. You cease to give to it. And every time you do, you are now doing something for man that nobody else ever does. Look, giving people higher pensions, getting a new nursery for the local school, and on and on and on, only changes the arrangement of the misery. Because this is mechanical thinking which changes nothing. And all the people down there at the school or wherever are not going to change. Don't you see this? You have to be all alone. And that's all that matters. You say, well, we got to save the world. You're not going to save the world until you are sane yourself. I have to have mental health before I can give you 1 ounce. I don't care if I have a dozen titles on the wall saying that I'm a psychiatrist or whatever. I have to be a sane human being. And I have to give up a lot of things too. I have to give up the vanity of being the man with the title on the wall, and I have to give up wanting that $50 an hour from you. And if I will die to enough things, I'll be a sane human being, and I won't care 2 cents whether I get 5 cents an hour or not. Yes, sir.
Could you explain that dying to yourself?
The question was, please explain the idea of dying to ourselves. Let's follow it step by step, real clearly, and then see the answer here. I'll take myself as an example. When I was born, society started giving me ideas about my identity. Some of them very mechanical. The political party that my father belonged to, the fraternal organization, the kind of a person that I am. I was told that I should be a kind person, which in itself is right. That's not wrong, obviously, to be a kind person. But because we are born with a capacity for distorting everything we hear, instead of living from our original pure nature, we start to overlay it with self-flattering labels. Therefore, I become a person who does good things. I give money to the Salvation Army, and I help down at the nursery, and my sister needs a home, so I give her a home. And all these images are giving, all these acts that I do are giving me ego gratification. At the same time, I'm in contradiction, because maybe I really didn't want to give that money to the Salvation Army, but they made me feel guilty. And I didn't want to feel guilty, and I also had an image of being generous, so I gave the money. I hope I'm not ruining the collection next week. Right. So I'm living from images, but I don't know it. I don't know I'm living from images, but I can feel the pain of it. If I am in pain, I am living from an image and not from a reality. Now we come to your question. When I can see that I am suffering, I can always safely say, I am living from a false idea about myself, which is merely an idea and not a reality. But I'm getting such gratification and maybe such rewards. Maybe I'm getting famous by my charity work or whatever. And this gives me such ego gratification that I don't want to give it up. But I'm tired and I want to give it up. I don't want to suffer anymore. I begin to see that I have to die to all my labels, all my images, all the flatterings, and incidentally, I don't exchange flattery anymore with people. We exchange flattery in order to keep each other in prison. I have to stop, which means I have to give up getting flattery from you, but I'm willing now. And this is it, as far as I'm going. This puts me in a crisis now, because I don't know who I am anymore. I was generous, I was a Republican, I was a leader of the club, I'm a live wire, I'm a young attractive person, I'm desirable, on and on and on. When I die to all these labels I have, and become nothing and become nobody, now I am sane, I am free, now I operate perfectly with the outer world and in no conflict with it at all, because I have set up no demands out there from the boss, from you, because I am already fulfilled. Then, when I go to the office in the morning, when I go down and repair the trucks, or whatever I do for a living, I do it without neurosis, without resentment, without conflict. And I go to work in order to earn money to put bread on the table, because if I don't have bread, I'll starve to death, and I don't want to starve to death. So I earn bread, money for bread. But I do it as a whole human being, and not as a sick human being, as I was for 30 or 40 years. When I see the state I am in, I can begin to die to it. But I must see it very clearly, and the more shocked I am, the more humiliated I am by seeing my state, the better it is. To see the faults is to begin to see the truth. Yes?
Was it more that's a situation then, Vernon, where, like I'm a salesman and you seek ego gratification to being, one of the top men, you
Right.
want recognition, you want this, you want that, you don't get it, you're disappointed.
Right.
And therefore, the old cycle goes.
Yes, that's a good example. This is what we're talking. May I ask you a question? Do you want to operate happily, truly happily, in your relations with the exterior world? If this is what you want, you can have it. Through these teachings, through what we're talking about, through these other things you're getting here in these group meetings, you can have it. But you have to go through a crisis and be willing to go through it. And you have to be willing to bear what at first we call insults to my good name, to my good nature. See, Christ never flattered anyone, and he didn't hurt anybody. He told the truth. He threw out the seed, and he said, this is it. It's up to you whether you want it. This is in essence what he said. He took no responsibility for those who rejected it. That's up to you. It's up to me whether you want it. So the seed is being tossed out every time you have a meeting here tonight. And if you want it more than you love conflict, and let's cover that very, very briefly, most people, again, would not know how to live without agitation in their life. Because to be agitated gives you a false feeling of life, a false identity. I'm an angry person. Watch television, watch people. You can spot it, just as if they had a sign on themselves that says, I'm an angry young rebel. He is an idiot. Let's go on.
Would you go into that a little bit further?
About idiots?
Yeah. I was talking about, I must have misunderstood. I want you to repeat that, okay?
We'll approach it a little differently. See, you have to work. I can't do it for you. When I don't have to prove a thing, when I am willing to be alone if necessary, which is not necessary, but if necessary, when I am willing to lose everything I have for the sake of truth, I am absolutely alone and empty. And this does not mean I can't have a wife or husband. Don't. It means I am not sacrificing my integrity to my wife or husband in order to hold them. I'm not going to smile when I really don't feel like smiling. I'm going to see myself as I am, that I have resentment toward you because I've been sacrificing myself to you all these years. When I am absolutely empty, when I don't know who I am, and I no longer seek to find who I am a free human being. Then, in my relationship with you, as far as I'm concerned, it will be a true relationship instead of one where I am wondering whether you like me or not, or whether you approve of me or not, or whether you're going to continue to like me or not. I am free. Do you see? Yes.
You mean there's no place for positive lying? Well, by positive lying, I think go up to somebody, I mean, a lot of people are sort of jerky or whatnot. You say, well, it's slow and all that, you're a nice person, but you probably think the same as me, but don't you think it makes it easier? I mean, you may not be thinking, you've maybe gotten cataloged pretty good. And on the other hand, you don't want to turn them on.
I mean, you're not on trial.
All right. Not under scrutiny, not on trial. Very good. You get unnervous. There is such a word. Shall we go on for 5 more minutes? 5 more, and then we'll stop. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, aren't you saying that what we are trying to find is an inner truth and an inner satisfaction of ourselves?
As simple as that. As simple as that. If I see I'm dissatisfied first, now I'm on the right track toward finding that satisfaction. If I'm deceiving myself and think I have it made, I'll never find it because I'm mistaking weeds for flowers. And if I can just watch and see how I resent truth sometimes, not necessarily in here, if I resent little lessons that life is trying to teach me, that is helpful.
Then what you're saying, in fact, is that these little affirmations that we kid ourselves with, if they are in conflict with our true self, what we are, then this is idiotic. Ridiculous.
If they are truly in conflict, yes.
Most of them are.
All right, but very briefly, any statement of knowledge that is true in fact is fine. For heaven's sake, help your thinking by reducing these truths into as short a sentence as you can, and do tell them to yourself, not mechanically, but consciously. For example, here's a positive thought. Today I will observe myself as I am, and try to see myself as I am, not as I imagine myself to be. That's a little long. Try to reduce it. I'm going to observe myself today. You see a lot of interesting things, and a lot of this is the beginning of health, of new health, the beginning of the ending of an awful lot of problems and an awful lot of habits. And then you won't be afraid of death. Finally, like that.
One thing I like to make a statement, Vernon, the one statement you made in your one book about the fact, don't worry about results. When you're a salesman, you're always going out and you're worrying about, well, is the guy going to buy my product? And then you find out, you can convince yourself it's not important what you do or do not make a sale. You're just doing your job and do it the best of your knowledge.
Right.
Then you find out you're much more successful because you aren't concerned about the results.
Right, you're not wasting energy on it. And there's something very, very deep behind that, which I'll go into very briefly. When I make a demand on the outer world to match my desire, I am afraid already I've made a wrong move. Because again, I think that getting the extra sale, or whatever it might be, will affirm something in me, and it will do nothing of the sort. What it will do is get me deeper into the trap because I'll get a thrill over it. I can hardly wait to tell my wife that I made a $10,000 commission last week. And I get real excited over it. I'll give you something to think about. You think about this, and you'll see. I'm saying this as an illustration, an example. If you're trying to catch a bus, you're running down the street trying to catch a bus. You can't catch the bus, and you never catch it. I will tell you how to solve the problem if you can never catch the bus. You connect this. This is an illustration. Do you understand? You are just as much the bus you're trying to catch as you are the person trying to catch the bus. There is no opposite to you in the entire world. Then you stop trying to catch the bus because you are the bus. You put the two together. I think we better quit with that.